In the week leading up to Christmas, everyone is bustling about, buying gifts, planning festive dinners, and arranging gatherings with loved ones. The usual pre-holiday atmosphere permeates the air, but not for the Bletsch family. Instead, they find themselves in a courtroom in the city of Muskegon, attending a hearing about the brutal crime that claimed their daughter as a victim. During the victim impact statements, the unthinkable happens. The convicted man brazenly stands up, asks for permission to leave, and while exiting, blows a mocking air kiss at the Bletsch family. The room erupts in outrage, with shouts of "coward" and "monster" ringing out. But for the criminal himself, such audacious behavior is nothing new. The Bletsch family's case is not his first. 25-year-old Jessica Heeringa worked at an Exxon gas station in Norton Shores, Michigan. She devotedly cared for her young son, for whom she lived and spared no effort. Her partner, Dakota Quayle Dyer, had recently lost his job, so Jessica took on any shifts she could to support the family. Despite their rocky relationship, she strove to keep the family together while battling a substance abuse problem that had taken hold shortly before the tragic events. Co-workers described Jessica as a kind and diligent employee who was trying to make amends for past mistakes. She usually preferred day shifts, but during that period, she agreed to work nights to earn more money. On the evening of April 26, 2013, around 2:40 p.m., Jessica stopped by a grocery store before arriving at the gas station in her uniform by 5 p.m. The day unfolded as usual. Customers pulled in to refuel, some entered the store. Nothing seemed amiss until around midnight, when an ominous call came into the emergency services. The caller reported that no one could be seen inside or outside the gas station, even though the lights were on, the doors were open, and an abandoned car was parked by the pumps. The premises looked untouched, as if the attendant had only stepped away for a moment. But the clock showed well past 11 p.m., and the shift was still ongoing. Arriving at the scene, officers immediately noticed suspicious details. A woman's jacket, a wallet with cash, and cigarettes lay in their places, indicating that the employee, who judging by the items was female, had not intended to leave. The last purchase at the register was recorded at 10:55 p.m., a lighter. Soon, drops of blood and a piece of a laser sight from a firearm were discovered outside. Robbery was quickly ruled out, as the money in the register and wallet remained untouched. A check revealed that it was 25-year-old Jessica Heeringa who had gone missing. She was supposed to work that night, but something sinister had happened the day before. Investigators had few leads to go on. The gas station had no surveillance cameras, and the fact that a young woman was working the night shift alone, without security, was particularly alarming. Law enforcement began interviewing potential witnesses and reviewing footage from nearby cameras. One of the first to respond was the station manager. She recounted that around 11 p.m., while riding past on motorcycles with her husband, she noticed a silver minivan parked behind the station. The woman initially found the parking spot odd and suspicious, thinking perhaps someone was planning a robbery. Her intuition told her to slow down and monitor the situation. She saw a man exit the minivan, open the rear doors, and start doing something. The woman backed away, keeping an eye on him. After a few minutes, the stranger got into the vehicle and drove off. Not noticing anything overly alarming, the manager followed suit. She had no idea that within mere minutes, her colleague Jessica would vanish without a trace. Later, during questioning, the woman described the suspicious man. He was wearing an orange hoodie and had curly hair. This information gave investigators their first lead, along with the description of the silver minivan. A review of surveillance footage from around the gas station quickly yielded results. 3 different cameras captured a Chrysler Town and Country minivan leaving the station between 11:02 p.m. and 11:05 p.m. Canvassing witnesses nearby also bore fruit. One man recalled seeing someone in a silver minivan talking to Jessica that night, acting overly persistent and flirtatious. The witness described the stranger, curly hair, wearing red or orange clothing. This was now the second independent account pointing to the same individual as the last person seen with Jessica before her disappearance. But the most alarming incident had occurred the day before. A regular customer of the gas station had stopped by on the evening of April 25, close to closing time. She witnessed Jessica conversing with an unknown man and, concerned, asked her why she was working nights alone, as it was dangerous. The suspicious stranger interjected, remarking that customers were looking out for Jessica. This response sounded odd and unsettled the woman. Glancing at Jessica, she noticed her shake her head in fright. The customer decided to wait in her car until Jessica closed the station and went home. Only after ensuring the suspicious individual had also left the premises did the woman drive away. This account perfectly matched the descriptions previously provided by the station manager and the other witness. The police finally had a portrait of the probable abductor. A composite sketch was created, and several press conferences were held urging the public to assist in locating the missing Jessica and any information about the suspect. But despite all efforts, the investigation hit a dead end, with no new leads surfacing. The mother of a 3-year-old boy had vanished without a trace, and no one could say what had happened to her. As time passed, Jessica Heeringa's case gradually went cold. On June 29, 2014, 14 months after her disappearance, a woman's body was discovered near a house in Dalton Township, Michigan. It was 36-year-old Rebekah Bletsch, who had gone out for a jog and fallen victim to a brutal attack involving a firearm. This incident shook the local community. First, Jessica had disappeared under mysterious circumstances, and now another woman had been killed by an unknown assailant. Shell casings and bullets were found at the scene of Rebekah's murder, but not a single clue pointed to the killer's identity. People began to notice an eerie similarity between the cases. Like with Jessica's disappearance, the investigation into Rebekah's murder dragged on without visible progress. 2 more years passed before the perpetrator struck again. And this third attack would prove pivotal. On April 16, 2016, a young girl from Laketon Township was walking home from a party and got lost. A silver minivan pulled up beside her, and the driver offered to let her use his phone. The girl agreed and, though hesitant, got into the vehicle. But as soon as she was inside, the man locked the doors and pulled out a gun. Gripped by fear, the girl realized the gravity of her mistake. But the survival instinct kicked in. She persuaded the attacker to open the window, ostensibly to get some fresh air, and seizing the chance, leapt from the car. Despite injuries sustained in the struggle, she managed to escape. Fortunately, the girl not only survived but also remembered the face of her assailant. She immediately went to the police and identified the minivan driver as the suspect. It turned out to be Jeffrey Willis, a man who had already come to the attention of law enforcement and even had a criminal record. A search of his vehicle uncovered a pistol with a laser sight that was missing its battery compartment cover, and the serial number had been deliberately filed off. Moreover, syringes filled with a clear liquid, later identified as a potent sedative, were found in the van, along with other items used for violent acts, ropes, handcuffs, and so on. In effect, Willis's minivan was a mobile torture chamber. It was only by a miracle that the girl had avoided a horrific fate. Had she not escaped, restoring the erased serial number on the gun could have taken much longer. However, thanks to the coordinated efforts of experts, it was discovered that the pistol was registered to Jeffrey Willis's colleague, who had previously reported her weapon missing. And it was this very gun that was equipped with a laser sight. All the pieces of the puzzle began to fall into place: a suspicious man with a propensity for his silver minivan, a weapon that had featured in other crimes. Too many coincidences to be dismissed as chance. In September 2016, more than 3 years after Jessica's disappearance and 4 years after Rebekah's murder, police obtained a warrant to search Jeffrey Willis's home and vehicle. On his home computer, investigators found numerous files containing content depicting the abuse of women and children. A particularly shocking discovery was a mysterious folder labeled VIX, inside which were 2 subfolders, G, L, H, and R, S, B. The abbreviation stood for Jessica Lynn Heeringa and Rebekah Sue Bletsch. The folders contained photographs of both victims and newspaper clippings related to their disappearances and murders. The investigation gained momentum when experts began examining the suspects' computers. One of them was password protected, and the password turned out to be a combination of Jessica's name and the date of her disappearance, G4L27H13. Furthermore, a gun was found in Jeffrey's house, and ballistic analysis confirmed that it was the very pistol from which the bullets had been fired, with casings left at the scene of Rebekah Bletsch's murder. The totality of the evidence seized during the searches provided grounds for the immediate arrest of Jeffrey Willis. He was charged with the abduction of Jessica Heeringa and the commission of a serious crime against her, as well as with the murder of Rebekah Bletsch and the attempted kidnapping of the girl from Laketon Township, which ultimately led to his apprehension. Later, Willis was also suspected of an unsolved attack on a student at Fruitport High School in October 1996. Investigators learned that Jeffrey was a frequent visitor to the gas station where Jessica worked. He had been seen there at least 15 times. This led to the idea that he might have chosen her as his victim in advance and put his plan into action on the night of April 26. The next day, colleagues noticed scratches and abrasions on Willis's face and hands, which they immediately reported to the police. An analysis of his cell phone records showed that around 11:30 p.m., the suspect was at an abandoned property located a 15-minute drive from the gas station. This land had been inherited by him from his grandfather. Although a search of the site failed to uncover any traces of Jessica, bleach and other cleaning agents were found, likely used to cover up evidence of the crime. All the collected evidence was sent for forensic examination. As the investigation approached its final stage, the prosecution decided to bring the case to trial and seek the maximum punishment for the perpetrator. The court proceedings in the case of Jessica Heeringa's disappearance began in May 2018, even though her body had never been found. However, the evidence gathered proved so compelling that the prosecution chose to build its case even without the main piece of physical evidence, the victim's remains. The jury was presented with all the materials from the investigation, physical evidence, data from the suspect's computers, weapons, and eyewitness testimony. Prosecutors insisted that Jeffrey Willis had been stalking Jessica for an extended period, waiting for the right moment, and on the night of April 26, he lured her into his minivan. The girl appeared to have resisted and sustained injuries, but the kidnapper forcibly took her to another location. There, Willis subjected Jessica to brutal torture before killing her. Investigators surmised that the victim fought desperately for her life and even managed to wound her tormentor, but it did not save her from death. After disposing of the body, Jeffrey continued to pretend as if nothing had happened and went on living his usual life. It took the jury a mere hour and a half to reach a unanimous verdict, guilty. Jeffrey Willis was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The same sentence was handed down in December 2017 when his case regarding the murder of Rebekah Bletsch was heard. But even after the killer was behind bars, one detail continued to trouble investigators: the whereabouts of Jessica Heeringa's remains remained unknown. Although hardly anyone doubted that she had perished, her loved ones still hoped to find her body in order to say goodbye properly and finally put an end to this tragic story. Unexpectedly, Kevin Bluhm, Jeffrey's cousin who had previously worked for the Michigan Department of Corrections, became involved in the case. In June 2016, he himself was accused of providing false testimony. Kevin possessed information about details of the crimes that had never been disclosed. Initially, he pleaded guilty but later changed his stance, agreeing instead to a charge of being an accessory after the fact. According to Kevin, Jeffrey committed the abduction and murder, while he merely helped dispose of the body. Bluhm recounted that the day after Jessica's disappearance, Willis called him and invited him over, ostensibly for a party. However, when Kevin arrived, there was no celebration to be found. Instead, he saw Jessica, bound, unconscious, with severe head injuries. By his account, he and Jeffrey wrapped the girl's body in a sheet, loaded it into the car, and drove to a remote spot near the intersection of Sheridan Highway and Laketon Road. There, Willis had prepared a grave in advance. After burying the body, the accomplices went their separate ways, as if nothing had happened. Even as the investigation neared its end, Jeffrey Willis continued to deny any involvement in Jessica Heeringa's disappearance. During the sentencing, he ostentatiously left the courtroom just as the relatives of Rebekah Bletsch were delivering their pain-filled statements. The judge did not react to this audacious gesture, which shocked those present. It was this very incident that prompted Rebekah's family to push for the introduction of a law that would require defendants to be present in the courtroom during all victim impact statements. This legislative initiative, known as the Rebekah Bletsch Law, was passed by the Michigan State Senate on May 10, 2018, and signed by Governor Rick Snyder on May 24. Meanwhile, Jessica Heeringa's family expressed outrage that at such a large and busy gas station, where their daughter and sister worked, there was not a single surveillance camera. Even greater disbelief and dismay was caused by the fact that a young woman was left alone to face all the dangers of the night shift. After all, being alone in a public place late at night is always a considerable risk for a member of the fairer sex. Jessica's loved ones are convinced, if there had been at least one other employee present that night, the tragedy could have been averted. At the initiative of the deceased's parents and the local community, a bill was drafted that came to be known as Jessica's Law. Adopted on December 9, 2013, it required all 24-hour retail establishments to be equipped with video surveillance systems and to have at least 2 employees on duty during night shifts. The law was intended to protect those who have to work late, especially young girls, students, and high school seniors. However, although more than 12 years have passed since then, the law has not been finally approved. The main argument against it was the excessiveness of the financial burden that would be placed on small businesses if such requirements were introduced. Installing cameras and paying for additional staff at night would entail considerable expenses, but isn't human life the highest value, one that outweighs profits? Unfortunately, in the corridors of power, priorities were set differently. Jeffrey Willis himself refused to reveal where he had hidden Jessica's body. Even after being sentenced to life in prison, he continues to keep this a secret, perhaps to maintain power over her family or simply to take pleasure in the suffering of the people he wronged. Loved ones still haven't given up hope of finding Jessica's remains so that they can lay her to rest with dignity and ease their pain a little. The tragedy affected other family members as well. In 2014, shortly after Jessica's disappearance, her partner and father of their son Zevin, Dakota, was arrested for drug possession. As a result, Jessica's sister Samantha filed a petition for emergency custody of the boy. Zevin's subsequent fate remains unknown. He must be about 18 years old now. He lost everyone closest to him, and his life was changed forever. I look forward to hearing your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button. Until next time, friends.